Hey, what's going on, fam? So another quick video. I want to read an article from about a Zimbabwean politician who went in on the Asians, and all he did was he really made a joke. Uh, but what he did kind of shows an example of how black people should be talking about Asian people right about now, especially now that we see the abuse that Asian people have um, been inflicting on Africans in China, but even in other places. There's a huge, deep, decades long culture of anti-black racism among Asians. It's very bad. Again, I talked about this in previous videos. It's not just Asian people. It's whatever you want to call them, Latinos, Hispanics, it's Arabs, it's whatever non-black but also non-white group you want to name. They have a culture of anti-black racism. Of course, we all know that white people, or most of us know that white people have a culture of anti-black racism. But so does every other non-black group, not just white people. And so does every other non-black ethnic group that's also considered non-white. They also have the same culture of anti-black racism among them. But since the Asians are the ones who have caused this coronavirus for the whole globe, and they're showing their open abuse of black people at a time like this, we as black people have to learn to return the same energy that people give to us. Now, no, I would never advocate for violence against other people unless you're defending yourself from their violence. So I'm not saying that we should go out and brutalize other people. But what I am saying is that we cannot be afraid to give out the same energy that's given to us. And that's what too many of us are afraid to do. Whether we're black Americans or Africans or Caribbeans, we are terrified of not being accepted by other people, and people realize this and they use it against us. They pretend to be our friends in order to steal our resources and steal from us. And then at other times they're openly racist to us because they know there's not going to be any real consequences, because they know that we're too afraid to stand up to them, because we're afraid of being further not approved of than we already are. So they know that they can shit on us and attack us, and we'll still pretend that we have this non-white unity with them as a group of people, because we're afraid of not being approved of by them as a group of people. Even if we know that they already don't approve of us, we're afraid of being even further disapproved of. So even when you don't like us, please just don't like us. Just don't dislike us more than you already do dislike us. I know you already dislike us, but please don't dislike us even more, because that will just break us. And that's our mentality all across the globe. So whenever I see any black person, whether they're an American or an African, showing that's not their number one priority, and they're not afraid to go in on these people and return some of the same anti-black energy that they direct towards us back towards them. When Asians direct anti-black energy towards us, we can direct some anti-Asian energy back towards them. When Latinos direct anti-black energy towards us, we can direct some anti-Latino energy back towards them, to show that we're not these pathetic, powerless, dependent people. We are independent. We are proud of ourselves, just like an individual. It's not, even if we take race out of it, as one man to another. If a man respects me, I can respect him back. But if a man disrespects me, I mean, obviously it depends on the situation and when everything like that. It's case by case. But for the most part, when a man disrespects you, you lose your manhood if you don't disrespect him back. Again, like I said, depending on the situation, sometimes you got to take the higher road, blah, blah, blah. I get that. But just in a general situation, without, you know, being too nitpicky, if a man disrespects you, if you are a man, you need to disrespect him back, or everyone around you of all races will lose respect for you as a man. This is just common sense. Most people, whatever race they are, if they're healthy and you're not someone that's obviously way stronger than them, if you slap them, they're going to slap your ass back. Yet black people take basically slaps from other races of people every day, and we keep coming back for more punishment, and we wonder why we end up on the bottom of everybody. So anyway, fam, and let me say this, because this is an African politician that I'm about to read an article about. Let me say this, because obviously I have my issues with Pan-Africanism and Pan-Babalism. If more Africans had the mentality of this gentleman, and I don't know if this gentleman is a rebel, but if more or not, he could be a sellout, like a lot of African politicians are. So I don't know if he's a rebel, actual rebel or not. But if more people had the mentality that this man is showing, I don't know if he actually has the mentality, but if more people had the mentality that he's showing by being willing to make the joke that I'm about to read about, maybe more Zimbabweans and more Africans all across the continent would be more on code to take control of their own resources, and then maybe they would have enough resources. Because I know the other big reason, other than being controlled by Europe and Asia, the other big reason why a lot of African countries don't reach out and give refuge to African Americans, even though they have all black countries with all black governments, is because they don't have the resources. Even if Europe and Asia and whoever else wasn't intimidating them and controlling them into not reaching out to us, they still wouldn't reach out to us because they just don't have the resources. Their citizens are too busy coming to America and Europe for them to have any resources to provide for us to move over there. But maybe if y'all were on more on coal, because Africa especially, but even a lot of these Caribbean islands, but Africa especially is the most mineral rich, resource rich continent on the planet. Africans, for the most part, should be the wealthiest people on the planet. But yet they're the poorest people. You want to know why? Because they don't have the mentality to stand up for themselves, take pride of what they have, who they are, where they're from, and take control of their own resources. Because if you had that mentality to be proud of who you are, where you're from, the land that you're on, the power that you wield, you would also have the mentality to take control of your own resources, because you would already have the self-confidence to do so and the self-belief. So if more African politicians had the mentality, and more African people had the mentality that this gentleman that I'm about to read an article about is displaying, maybe they would also have the mentality and the self-respect and the courage to seize control of their resources, and then they would have the wealth to provide a refuge to African Americans, and then Pan-Africanism would actually be Pan-Africanism instead of what it is today, which is Pan-Babalism, where a bunch of Negroes, whether they're black Americans or immigrants, sit around and circle jerk about John Henrik Clark and don't do nothing, don't do anything except circle jerk about John Henrik Clark and Dr. Ben Yakinen, who I'm not disrespecting those scholars or those ancestors, but Pan-Africanism is not a realistic ideology. Not when you have black countries with black governments and no outreach to their stolen and lost children. You cannot have Pan-Africanism. So as much as I respect those ancestors and I've learned from them, they are the foundation of me understanding white supremacy, I can't agree with what they're doing any longer. People evolve, people grow. At one point, people thought the world was flat. Is that disrespecting your ancestors now to say that it's the world is a globe? No, you just come up with better information. But and that doesn't mean that you need to disrespect your ancestors just because you come up with better information. Because regardless of whether or not your information is now better, it's still built on their foundation if you've studied them, because I know some people like the suicide down ballot movement, they don't have that foundation. That's why they come up with suicide down ballot strategies. But I digress. This video is not about them. So I respect Dr. Ben Yakin and Dr. John Henry Clark. Dr. Khalid Muhammad is still one of my favorite ancestors. Does that mean I agree with their Pan-African ideologies? I did at one point, but no longer. But who I don't really respect are the Pan-Babblers who don't have any new ideas. They just repeat what those ancestors wrote, and they circle jerk and babble and don't take any real action. It would be one thing if you were still regurgitating what those ancestors said and putting their words into action, building a Pan-African movement, living in Africa instead of this hellhole America that we should take no ownership over. Yet you're still here, by the way, Pan-Babblers. You're still here while you're telling us we should have nothing to do with this country and we shouldn't even call ourselves American, but your ass won't leave America. You should be about your words of how we should be disconnected from Africa, from America, and be in Africa and be pressuring those politicians. Hey, we need more black Americans over here. You need to make this a place where black Americans can come. That's the least you could do, but you don't do that, Pan-Babblers. But if, again, more back to this topic of this video, if more Africans had the mentality that this gentleman is displaying, again, fam, I don't know if he's actually a rebel. He could be another sellout. But the mentality that he's showing by this tweet, that would be the seeds of what it would take to actually have Pan-Africanism. I don't hate Africans. I don't encourage other people to hate Africans or Caribbeans. I just want y'all to come over here and respect black Americans and what we've done and what we've built. Stop believing white racist stereotypes about us, about how we're ghetto and lazy. Yes, some of us are, but yes, so some of your people are lazy and trash and criminals. That's of all races, of all people. That's not just black Americans. There's plenty of African lazy criminals and no good people. Just like there's plenty of no good white people, Asian people, whatever. That doesn't mean the whole race is bad. So stop coming over here disrespecting us while trying to leech off our resources and what we fought for black Americans and the set-asides that were really meant for us, not you who don't have the same background as us and don't have the same baggage as us in many cases. Stop coming over here disrespecting us and create a refuge for us in your all-black country and in your all-black government. I want that. But until we get that, I'm not going to focus on helping you. I'm only going to focus on black Americans. But I don't hate you. And I'm still going to respect you as an individual person. But as far as politically advocating for you and seeing you as the same as me politically, it's not happening anymore. Not until we have some actual tangible Pan-Africanism instead of circle jerkers who read Dr. Ben Yakinen and John Henry Clark and Dr. Marimba Ani, but don't make any significant progress towards a Pan-African movement other than doing what they accuse ADOS of doing, which is do nothing but post online. But at least, fine, let's say we post online. At least we post online about things we can actually do in America and political activism that we can take to affect our system here and our condition here, rather than fantasizing about what we're going to do in Africa, and our ass ain't never been to Africa. We ain't never tried to go to Africa or live in Africa. We just babble in America about how great Pan-African and Pan-Babbleism is and how hard and how horrible America is, but we stay right in America with our American jobs, feeding into the capitalist system, the same capitalist, evil, corrupt, imperial system that Pan-Babblers say. That's also where some of them say we shouldn't get reparations because, it's all drawn from imperialism. Well, why do you have a job that draws from that imperial economy that depends on oil and gold and other things that are stolen from African countries? Why are you driving a car that depends on those things? You're just feeding the system. You're part of the demand that encourages the white supremacists to keep stealing. But I digress, fam. It's 15 minutes and I haven't even gotten to the article. So let's go ahead and quickly read the article. So, uh, this is from iHarar. It's a Zimbabwean newspaper. And it says a Zimbabwe minister has sparked controversy after offering to export beef to China because he wants the Chinese to stop eating dogs, cats, snakes, bats, monkeys, baboons, and other wildlife. Energy Mutoti, who was a member of the ruling ZANU-PF party and the deputy minister of information, publicity, and broadcasting services, said that the consumption of wildlife in Asia and some parts of Africa is why the humans is is the reason why humans are contracting diseases such as coronavirus and Ebola. Mutoti then cheekily said Zimbabwe was hoping to export huge amounts of beef to China, Indonesia, and other Asian countries in an effort to stop this. To buttress his point, the minister shared a video from Al Jazeera News which showed a wet market in China where things like snakes, dogs, and some other wildlife are being openly displayed for sale. In the video, the World Health Organization is calling on Asian countries to institute stricter standards for safety and hygiene when the wet markets reopen. And then here's his tweet. Writing on social media platform Twitter, Mutoti said, the consumption of dogs, cats, snakes, bats, monkeys, baboons, and other wildlife in Asia and some parts of Africa have left us all at risk of contracting the COVID-19 and Ebola viruses. We hope to up our game on beef exports to China, Indonesia, and others soon. Mutoti, who is fast building a reputation as a garrulous motormouth, seems to be under the impression that the consumption of wildlife and other domestic animals is down to the lack of beef. Many Zimbabwean social media users quickly schooled the minister over his reckless and misinformed taunting of the Chinese. Many warned that he was insulting China, the one country that the Zimbabwe government claims to be all-weather friends. However, it seems that Mutoti was not moved. Despite the avalanche of responses to his post, the minister did not delete his tweet or attempt to spin it in any way. The Chinese embassy in Zimbabwe has yet was tongue tied. The Chinese embassy in Zimbabwe was yet, and that's why I was tongue tied because the article was written where it says was yet, so that's why I was messed up by that. But anyway, the Chinese embassy in Zimbabwe, I think they meant has yet, but it says was yet, has yet to respond to the minister's position at the time of publishing. Barely 24 hours earlier, Chinese Deputy Ambassador to Zimbabwe, Zhao Baogang, attracted a lot of criticism on Twitter when he appeared to celebrate the deaths of Zimbabwe healthcare workers who succumbed to the coronavirus in England. In the tweet, which has since been deleted, Zhao seemed happy that Zimbabweans were dying in the UK because it underlined how well the Chinese were apparently treating Africans in their country. Zhao's tweet seems to have been a response to reports that Africans in China were being racially abused and inhumanely treated by locals who accused them of having the coronavirus. So, fam, as y'all see there in that article, he clowned the Asians and he talked about how they eat bat, rats, and cats, and they do. It's true. And that's why he shared a video from Al Jazeera News, which is a very credible news organization, showing their wet markets and how they're eating bats and rats and cats. And I don't want to hear about no politically correct babble about how it's not right to say that, because nobody had fear to talk about Black American so-called diet when everyone was spreading this news, which I'm not even sure if it's true, but this so-called news that black people are getting it worse than anyone else. What were they blaming? Oh, black people are susceptible because of their diet, because they're obese, because they smoke, because they drink. So our habits, it's okay to blame our habits for us catching the coronavirus. But Asians are over in Asia eating bat sandwiches, and we're not allowed to say anything about it. It's racist to say something about it. We got to blame black people because black people like so-called like fried chicken and watermelon. So that's what's causing us to get coronavirus over here in America, and that's totally politically correct. That's totally fine. That's why they have our so-called black surgeon general getting up there talking about, do it for your Mimi, do it for your Papa. It's okay to publicly blame black Americans' own diets for them catching the coronavirus. But if I say Asian people, or if this Zimbabwean politician says Asians need to stop eating bat, rat, and cat, that's wrong. That's racist. Even though that's minor compared to the abuse that Africans are experiencing in Asia right now. At the end of the article, you saw how they talked about how the Chinese ambassador to Zimbabwe, which China is doing a lot of business, aka slash resource stealing from Africa right now, which is another reason why them abusing Africans in China stands out so much, because Africans have opened their arms to China to steal their resources. And this Chinese ambassador, because the Chinese, the way they've responded to being criticized about their racism is to deflect, deny, and minimize. And also, and one of their ways of deflecting is to point to Europe and America and say, oh, they have such a worse history of the way they treat black people, which it doesn't matter how they treat us. That doesn't give you the right to mistreat us also, just as long as you mistreat us a little bit less than they do. That's not how it works. But that tells you a lot about the kind of character and the kind of people they are, that they think that it's okay to mistreat us because whatever they're doing to us, the history of what Europe and America has done is worse, which it is. But it doesn't matter. That don't make it okay. And I should not have to explain that to anyone who's not a vicious, evil, demented racist. I shouldn't have to explain that. But obviously, this Asian minister needs it explained. That's why he celebrated and then deleted his tweet celebrating the deaths of Africans in England. That's who we're dealing with. I'm going to post a link from Atlanta Black Star, a news organization, that's showing how Africans, even after Asians came out, after they got called out and a lot of Asian politicians came out, you would think that even though, fine, you're gonna deny it and minimize your racism, but you would at least think that you would stop. You would stop being racist. Even if you're not gonna own up to what you were doing before, you would think that after you've been called out, you would stop. Even if you don't admit to that you were being racist before, that you would stop. They haven't stopped. They're still being racist to the Africans. We know how they treat us when they come to America, how our women get beat up in their beauty supply stores, how they follow us around, how they follow our children around in their gas stations and accuse us of in their clothing stores and accuse us of being thieves. We understand how they came out and protested for Peter Liang, and they literally publicly said that he should be able to get away with killing a black person because white cops get away with it. That's what Asians said in America. They have a deep-seated history of racism. I'm going to post a video about a little black girl who's half Japanese who grew up in Japan with her Japanese mother, and how she tells us, and in that video she's going to tell a story of how she was on a train in the third grade, so she's a small little child, and how a grown-ass Asian man just went on this tirade about how he hates black people and how all Asians should steer clear of black people, and this is in Japan. Now I know I'm talking about China, or how the Zimbabwean minister was talking about China, now I'm talking about Japan. But the reason why I'm bringing up Japan and that girl is because I randomly came across that video on YouTube, but it just further shows how it's not just China. It's a deep-seated culture across all Asian culture of anti-black racism. And again, it's not just Asians. All people of all races have anti-black cultures. Anybody who's not black, and even a lot of black people have like a lot of Africans have an anti-black American culture and anti-black American, almost borderline racism. I say black people can't be racist, but still, if black people could be, a lot of Africans are racist towards Americans and have a culture of anti-black racism. But not only just Africans, or and again, I don't believe black people can be racist, African or American. But not just, I'm not really even talking about Africans, but not just Asians, Latinos, Hispanics, whatever you want to call them, Jews, any non-black group that can also be considered non-white. Now, I consider Jews white, but that's another story. Arabs, any non-black group that's also considered non-white has a culture of anti-black racism. But again, Asians are very bad with it. And again, that's why the reason why I'm gonna put the link in the description box to the little black girl telling her story, half Japanese girl telling her story. This is a grown Asian man targeting a little girl for no reason other than she's black. That shows you how vicious anti-racism is. Just that one example. Anti-black Asian racism is. That this grown-ass Asian man would attack a little black girl for no reason other than the fact that she's black. That's what we're dealing with. This is why we can't be scared to call these people out. These people buy into and promote the notion that we're lazy. The reason why we don't deserve the reparations and the reason why we're in the condition that we're in is because we're lazy, ghetto-ass criminals. Fine. That's what we are. That's our stereotype. We're lazy, ghetto criminals. And you know what you are? You're nasty-ass pale faces who descend from the same Neanderthals that other pale faces do. And you eat bat, rat, and cat. Your ass is nasty. Fine, black people are lazy. We're criminals. We're drug addicts. We're obese. Fine. And you are a nasty MF who eats bat, rat, and cat. Black people need to stop being afraid to say this stuff. That's the least we can do. Not only that, though, we need to stop doing business with these people. We need to stop going to Asian restaurants. First of all, because we don't want to catch coronavirus from your bat soup and your rat soup that you claim is chicken, but we know it's a damn cut up house cat. We don't want your coronavirus at your Asian restaurants, nor do we want your racism. So we really need to go beyond just jokes and clowning them. But we really need to stop doing business with people. We need to stop believing in these people of color and minority myths. They don't exist. It's only black people. And in America, until we have a real Pan-African movement, it's only black Americans. And again, fam, I just want to reemphasize, I don't know if this gentleman is a rebel. He could be another sellout. Most African politicians are. But at least the mentality that he's displaying, even if it's not his true mentality, is the same kind of mentality. It's the foundation of the same kind of mentality more black people need to have. And if we did have it, we wouldn't be in the condition we are all across the globe, because black people on the racial totem pole were on the bottom all across the planet. That's why everyone's racist to us, because they know we're on the bottom. And they know that we're the stepping stool to whiteness. If they step on us, they get to be a little bit closer to whiteness, because white supremacy is based on anti-black racism. This is why it's so important to understand the system of white supremacy, because if you did, you will understand how to conduct yourself and how to interact with other people. And no, it doesn't mean just be blindly and foolishly racist for no reason. But it means that you have to be willing to return the same energy to other people that they show to you. And if you know that other people are racist, no, that doesn't mean you should go out and be violent towards them. But the least you can do is have some of the same racist ass ideas towards them. Because obviously that's how they build up their self-esteem. And if you had enough self-esteem for yourself, you would have the same damn energy. But anyway, fam, that's another video. Like, share, subscribe, and peace.